I've got massive news for Queensland first home buyers. You can now rent out your spare room in your new home without losing your stamp duty concessions or first home buyer benefits. This is a huge policy shift that has just become permanent. Even better, there's some banks now factoring that potential rent into your loan application. And this can make a huge difference to your borrowing power. Adding just $150 a week can increase your borrowing capacity by $30,000 to $50,000. Just imagine that extra borrowing capacity can be the difference between a 1 and a 2 bedroom, an apartment to a townhouse, so it can really make a huge difference. So today I want to walk you through exactly what this new Queensland rule means. We're going to cover how it boosts your borrowing capacity, and I'm going to show you some real world numbers. And it's not all good news, there is some downside to this, so we're going to go through it warts and all. And finally, if you're interstate, I'm going to show you how this stacks up with what's available in the other states. And before I do, if you get any value from this video, please hit that like and subscribe button. It makes a huge difference to the channel here. And if you've got any questions, leave a comment below. I read each and every one of them. All right, so let's break down this big change in Queensland first. For the longest time, if you bought your first home and you got a great stamp duty concession, which is a huge amount, you can save 20 to 30,000 if you're buying your first home to live in, there was a bit of a catch. You had to move in there and live in there for a solid 12 months without renting out any part of that property. If you decided to get a mate in to help you pay with a mortgage, you actually risked having to pay back that stamp duty concession. Not really ideal, right? Well, that's all changed. The new rule, which has become permanent in late 2024, basically says you absolutely can rent out the spare rooms in your house, even if you're living there. Well, I guess it's actually provided that you're living there in that first 12-month period. The main condition, and it's an important one, is that you, the owner, have to continue living in that house too. It has to be considered your principal place of residence. So you can't just buy it and rent out the whole thing straight away. That would make it an investment property, and there's extra stamp duty and stuff involved with that. But if you're living in the property, you're renting out a room or two to a mate's, then you're good to go. And also, it doesn't need to be mates. You can have a proper tenancy agreement in there. As long as you're living there as your main house, that's the biggest condition. You might be wondering why the government decided to make this change. Well, there's a couple of reasons. Well, firstly, it's a direct way to help first home buyers like you actually afford the mortgage repayments, especially in those early days. And secondly, every spare room that gets rented out is another spot for someone to live. It's obviously going to help ease the rental crisis we're seeing at the moment. So it's a pretty common sense move. All right, so that's the rule change, but here's the part that I think is really going to make you sit up and listen.